All right, welcome to the Young Turks. Jake Huger and a Kasparian from Quaran-TYT-ned headquarters. Everyone has been asking to be socially distanced from me for years and years. Well, ask and ye shall receive. We have social distancing. We're all doing this from our individual homes, from CASPES headquarters in a remote location somewhere in Southern California. We have Anna Kasparian from Yuglang headquarters. My wife's last name is Lang. All right. Anyway, we have Cenk Uygur, obviously. So listen, guys, these are not light times, but my job is to be a goofball, so I'm going to be a goofball anyway, where it is called for. Of course, anger and passion, where that's called for. And we got plenty of that as well. I have a lot more information on coronavirus. I will share that with you. Whatever you do, do not ever take the information I have as medical fact. So we don't want to pull a Trump here, but I'll give you the updates that we have and the information we have and the news that we have in the short period of time that we have. So Casper, go.
All right. Well, let's start off with some of what Donald Trump is attempting to do when it comes to, in his world, in his mind, saving the economy. So Donald Trump is arguing that maybe it's not such a good idea to move forward with the federal government guidelines on social distancing in order to slow the spread of coronavirus. Now, why would he think that? Maybe because it's having an impact on the economy, and he cares about the economy far more than he cares about actually saving human lives. So actually, he had a talk on Fox News, and check out how soon he would like to end the guidelines for social distancing.
We're going to be opening relatively soon. Our time comes up on Monday or Tuesday, the allotted 2 weeks, but we'll stay a little bit longer than that. But we want to get open very soon. I think that was a big reason it's gone up. I also think that the fact that the Senate and the House, we seem to be getting along as much as you can get along. We seem to be getting along now on a bill. I think that maybe had even less of an impact than the fact that we're opening up this incredible country, because we have to do that. I'd love to have it open by Easter. Okay, I would love to have it open by Easter. I will tell you that right now. I would love to have that. It's such an important day for other reasons, but I'll make it an important day for this too.
So, of course, he wants to open up the economy as quickly as possible, and it goes against everything that health experts have to say. But don't worry, he's been getting some advice from business experts, because that's much more important to him. So the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has been urging social distancing, defined as remaining out of places where people meet or gather, and avoiding local public transportation, even if you don't have any symptoms of the virus, as a way to slow the spread of the disease. The CDC has recommended that no gatherings of 50 or more people take place for 8 weeks, and adults 65 and over stay home if possible. But the federal government actually addressed this by suggesting stricter guidelines, no gatherings of people, 10 people or more, right? And so they went even further than the CDC, but I think that was the right way to go. If we really want to stop the spread of this virus, and if we want to avoid overwhelming the healthcare system, this is what we need to do. This is what we need to do to save lives. That should matter more, but we have oligarchs running the country, so the economy is all that matters. Their damn stock portfolios, all that matters.
Okay. So first of all, Easter is important for other reasons too. It's when Jesus opened his casket, but now it'll also be known for Trump opening the economy. Okay. Okay. Yes, Easter is also known for other things other than you, Donald Trump. Later, Dr. Oz, of course, would ask him, on what medical advice would you set the date of Easter? He's like, well, we'll have to see how that goes. So of course he's just pulling a date out of his what. And by the way, putting it on actual Easter is a terrible idea, because then everybody will gather in the churches, where then you could spread the disease more. So, but he doesn't have any of the details planned. He has no idea what he's basing it on. Is there some, medical update that he would have to see for him to pull the trigger on it being Easter? Would he rely on some experts? Which experts? Is there any metrics that we could look at to see what would precipitate that turnaround. Look, everybody wants to eventually be able to go back outside. I mean, at a bare minimum, we're all going stir crazy, let alone the damage to the economy. We're all cognizant of that. But we have to have some rational, scientific, medical reasons that allows us to say, hey, you know what? Now we think it's safe enough. And remember, as we said on yesterday's show, if everybody goes back to work and then we have another round of the virus, you did not help the economy, you hurt the economy, because then you got to self-quarantine again, and it goes in waves rather than hopefully getting it over in one shot.
No, let's just stop wasting our time sugarcoating anything, because the truth is a lot of people are going to die, okay? We have an incompetent moron running the country, and he is being advised, Cenk. Are you kidding me? Of course he takes advice. He takes advice from a person named Wall Street. Like, he doesn't care about the medical experts surrounding him. And it's hilarious because he is surrounded by medical experts, right, who are trying to dissuade him from, quote unquote, opening the economy back up, which would, again, lead to this virus continuing to spread. It would needlessly make this process drag out longer than it needs to. And people are going to die when you could save lives by just doing what you need to do as a leader, right? But he's not interested in being a leader. So it's really fascinating to see people surrounding him, including Dr. Deborah, what was her name? Birx. So Dr. Deborah Birx and Dr. Anthony Fauci are doing the rounds, media rounds, to correct his misinformation and to urge people to stay home. And here's one example of that.
We know in specific metro areas and all the areas that have rising number of cases should be following all the president's guidelines. Those were very clear. They were sent out over a week ago. And this is my plea to every American. Please continue to follow the presidential guidelines.
Are you confident that the president will listen to you, to Dr. Fauci, to Dr. Adams, the Surgeon General, if you were to say, look, we know it is a hard pill to swallow, so to speak, for the economy, but to save lives, we have to continue this lockdown? Are you confident he would listen to that advice and take that advice?
I am confident that the president has listened to and seen all of our data as it evolves. I think you can see that the president over these 3 weeks has been very focused on what the American people need, both economically and public health-wise.
So they have to really walk this fine line of not offending Donald Trump, because as we know, anyone who goes against him immediately gets fired. But they also have to convey important information so Americans protect themselves and they don't spread the virus. One other suggestion that I'm hearing from the business community is, okay, well, you know, we know that young, healthy people are less likely to die as a result of coronavirus. So why don't we send them back out into the workforce and have the older, vulnerable people stay home? How does that stop the spread? Like, old people and young people aren't like completely segregated. It's such a dumb suggestion to practice. And it's all to, you know, get the stock market back up, which, by the way, it's doing well today, but it's obviously a very temporary bump based on nonsense because everyone's expecting the Senate to pass the stimulus bill soon.
Yeah. So, look, older people are more vulnerable to die. They're not more vulnerable to get the disease. We're all equally vulnerable to actually contract the disease. So it's not like, oh, old people are home, so nobody's going to get the disease. No. And if young people go to work and they get the disease, they can bring it back home. And so, and there'll be more people that contract it, which then puts older people in more and more danger as well. So that's not really how it works. And what I'm worried about with Donald Trump is it's not just that he would lift the idea of social distancing, whether it's in 15 days or by Easter. It's that every time he starts to talk about how we got to start getting back together and get the economy going and get rid of social distancing, I'm afraid that more people are going to start doing that right now. They're not going to wait till Easter. They're like, oh, the cult leader said it was going to be fine. So, oh, I hear it's just for weak liberals in blue states. I'm fine. I'm undefeated. I'm going to go out there. And then, again, the problem here is the waves. It starts on the coast because that's where people come into the country from. It came from outside the country initially. It slowly goes to the middle of the country, but if the middle of the country isn't paying any attention to facts or science, it'll then go back out to the coast, and round we go. That's why we all have to do it at once. But if Trump keeps running his mouth with completely inaccurate information and keeps encouraging people to go outside, well, they're not going to listen to Dr. Birx. They're not his followers. They're not going to listen to Dr. Fauci. First of all, they're doctors. They believe in science. So of course Republicans aren't going to listen to that. They're going to listen to their dear leader, and the dear leader's acting nonchalant and cavalier again. So it endangers our lives. But guys, also, please, for God's sake, it's not an either or. It's not either we protect our lives or we protect our economy. If we endanger our lives, it further endangers the economy. It doesn't help the economy anyway.
I know, but by making that point, you're asking, members of Trump's base and the Trump administration to think ahead and have an actual thought process that's intelligent and well-meaning and, will yield the best results. Trump is a fly-by-night, shoot from the hip type of guy. He doesn't value human lives. The only thing Donald Trump values is his pocketbook. That's it. Our system, it's funny, he was quoted as saying this, and I just thought it was such an interesting statement because, look, he says, our country wasn't built to be shut down. This is not what the country was built for. It was not built to be shut down, right? Okay, it wasn't built to be shut down. He's actually right. That was a fascinating, honest moment for Donald Trump because our system is not meant to protect us during a pandemic because protecting Americans is not profitable. It's just not, right? In the short term. Everything is about short-term gain. It's not about what's best in the long term, both for the economy and for human lives. Anyway, right. I hate everyone. It's just, it's so it's so disgusting to see the type of behavior that we're seeing right now by members of the media and also, people who have been elected to represent us, much more concerned again, about their stock portfolios as opposed to stopping and slowing the spread of this pandemic.
All right, to give you a sense, guys, last thing on this, to give you a sense of why people are so concerned and what does it mean people's lives are on the line, other than the obvious of they contract this disease and then they die. It's the ventilators, for example. So in New York, they're saying they need 40,000 ventilators because you have the people that normally need ventilators for getting sick for other reasons. Right. And now you add the pandemic on top. And if people stay inside, less cases come at the same time. And then the number of ventilators we have a better chance of being enough for the new patients and the old patients. But if Governor Cuomo is right and you have about 4,000 ventilators, but you need 30,000 ventilators and FEMA sends in just 400 the other day, which is nothing, well, then he's asking who's going to make the decision on which 26,000 people are not going to get a ventilator, and a lot of whom are going to die on the spot. So that's what's at stake here as Donald Trump and his rich Republican friends obsess about their stock portfolio.
Well, let's go from one corporate goon to the next. Texas's Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick, was recently being interviewed on Fox, and he's very much concerned about what this pandemic is doing to the economy. And he made a fascinating suggestion. Let's take a look.
No one reached out to me and said, as a senior citizen, are you willing to take a chance on your survival in exchange for keeping the America that all America loves for your children and grandchildren? And if that's the exchange, I'm all in. And that doesn't make me noble or brave or anything like that. I just think there are lots of grandparents out there in this country, like me, I have 6 grandchildren, that what we all care about and what we love more than anything are those children. And I want to, live smart and see through this, but I don't want the whole country to be sacrificed. And that's what I see. I've talked to hundreds of people, Tucker, and just in the last week, and making calls all the time. And everyone says pretty much the same thing, that we can't lose our whole country. We're having an economic collapse. I'm also a small businessman. I understand it. And I talk with business people all the time, Tucker. And my heart is lifted tonight by what I heard the president say, because we can do more than, one thing at a time. We can do two things. So, my message is that let's get back to work. Let's get back to living. Let's be smart about it. And those of us who are 70 plus, we'll take care of ourselves, but don't sacrifice the country. Don't do that. Don't ruin this great American
you're basically
dream.
saying that this disease could take your life, but that's not the scariest thing to you. There's something that would be worse than dying.
Yeah.
Yeah, trash. That's what that was. That was trash. It was garbage. Okay. Yeah, and I love how he tried to like flatter himself in the middle of that. Like, I'm not brave or courageous or any. No, you're not. You're trash. He should know that. Okay. By the way, he talks about his grandchildren. Okay. Go out there then. Because the real heroes right now are the people who are putting their lives on the line to treat patients with coronavirus, the people who are working at the grocery stores, so those stores remain open and we can have access to food. So if he wants to be brave and if he wants to practice what he preaches, why doesn't he go bag some groceries right now? Right now. You think Dan Patrick is going to do that? Trash.
So let's finish the sentence, because he said, Tucker Carlson asked him, so you think some things are more important than even your life? And he said, yeah, his stock portfolio. I mean, there it is. Republican 101. Look, guys, no one is minimizing the damage to the economy. It's hurting young Turks. It's hurting all of us personally. It's hurting people who might lose their jobs. No one is minimizing that. But if the trade-off is we let a huge percentage of people above the age of 70 die so the stock market doesn't go down and all those other economic ailments don't happen, I don't think that's a hard question. And apparently they don't think it's a hard question either. We just have different answers. But also understand the false courage that Anna was talking about there. Dan Patrick actually thinks he's going to be okay. He's wealthy. He's a statewide politician. He's among the elites. You think he's not going to get a ventilator? Trust me, he's going to get a ventilator if he gets sick, right? You run out of ventilators for poor people. Well, some people had to be sacrificed. He kept talking about the word sacrifice. Imagine if Democrats had said, well, look, we got to sacrifice some older Americans to pay for other parts of the government. They would be like, oh my God. And in fact, when they didn't even do that, the Republicans invented this thing called death panels that didn't actually exist, except here's the lieutenant governor of Texas calling for death panels, saying, well, I know, but we got to get the stock market back up.
Trash. And, he's not the only one. Fox and Friends, they've had similar discussions. In fact, recently, Stuart Varney was on Fox, and he was making similar arguments.
What the president is saying is at odds with what the medical community is saying. The president is saying, let's get back to work. But the medical community seems to be saying, no, you got to clamp down to make sure we beat the virus first. So there's two sides to this equation. The investors, they're taking the president's side. They want the economy to start getting back up to speed again, albeit slowly, but that's what they want. And that's why the market does so well first thing this morning.
Yeah, and in New York, we lost 126 people. They passed away last night. It was the biggest increase since this whole thing started. There's no question that New York has more cases than anybody else, and there's no question that New York is getting the biggest response as they convert the Javits Center. In fact, overall with the economy, we're going to lose this month between 5 and 7 million jobs. 5 to 7 million people will be laid off.
Because it's important, and I haven't heard anyone, even in left media, make this point. The economy's been pretty crappy for a lot of people for a very long time. Like, what it took was for the stock market to suffer, for all of these TV pundits, not just on Fox News, all over the place, all of these mainstream cable outlets, right, to start panicking about the economy, Now, don't get me wrong, as Cenk has said a million times, yes, this pandemic has had a huge negative impact on our economy. People have been laid off. My husband's been laid off. So I get that. But they don't care about Christian getting laid off. They don't care about all those workers in the gig economy who had to work several different jobs just to make enough money to pay their rent. They've been bragging about how wonderful the economy is while workers' wages have remained stagnant for decades. While people who were hurt the hardest, right, from the 2008 economic collapse never recovered. You heard all these same people talking about how wonderful the economy was. They did not care about any situation any average American was in. They didn't care about how bad the economy was for the vast majority of average Americans. They didn't care until their stock portfolios took a hit. Now, all of a sudden, oh my God, the economy is terrible. But if you look at so many other measures of the economy prior to what happened with coronavirus, you'll know that it wasn't doing so well for most people anyway.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. 5 to 7 million people losing their jobs. That's why Stuart Varney's all upset. That's why Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick's all verklempt. No, it's their beloved, cherished stock market. And even the unemployed, they're like, whoa, that makes me worry about the economy, which will make the stocks dip. Everything is about their money.
Yeah.
Everything's about their money. And look, so let's talk about those 5 to 7 million people. So for us, our hearts break for them. But what is the alternative? Is it to send them back to work where it is dangerous? No, the alternative should be to cover, for example, if they actually cared. Hey, Stuart, I got a great idea. Dan Patrick, I got a great idea. Why don't we pay their full salaries as unemployment insurance only while the pandemic is raging? And then we'll put a cap on it, and then we'll get back to normal afterwards. That way you can show that you really care about those people, instead of saying, the way I'm going to show my care is, no, I'm not going to give them money. And of course not. Don't be ridiculous, right? I'm not going to help them make a living or provide for their family. No, I'm going to send them back to work where they can get sick and then spread the disease. You see how caring I am? Get out of here. You don't care about them at all, not 1%. And again, guys, it doesn't help the economy if everybody goes back to work and they all get sick, and then we all have to go back inside the house for another couple of weeks or a couple of months. So this is no answer at all. And what they don't realize is it'll drag down the stock market, their beloved, cherished stock market, for even longer than this current situation.
Exactly. All right. Well, when we come back from the break, we'll discuss the never-ending saga between Donald Trump and Dr. Anthony Fauci. It seems like tensions are certainly rising between the two, so I'll give you the latest on that. And then later in the show, we'll talk about where the Senate is with the stimulus bill that they have failed to pass so far.
Many of you already know that the TYT Army has been officially organizing for the past year, and the Army is constantly growing, too strong. They're making decisions on which candidates and elected officials to help, and always coming up with ways to inform people about progressive policies. I love that. Now, we want to give a huge shout out to some special volunteers and highlight accomplishments of our TYT Army. You're making all the difference. Carlos Ramirez III is the colonel or the department director of Task Force 1, which is a team that keeps a lookout for biased stories reported in the media. They then vet stories before they send them to the next team for fact checking. I love these guys. This is Carlos's first time volunteering in politics, but he rose to the ranks thanks to his experience as a software developer and his commitment to objective reporting to help build his team. With training and support from General Alison Hartson, of course our TYT community director, Carlos is learning how to organize, strategize, and make a real difference. Now, here's what Allison says. You would never know that this is Carlos's first experience with politics. His ability to inspire and support his team, collaborate with other team leads, and use his skills at data and software to help us grow has surprised probably both of us. I can't imagine where we would be without him. All right, thank you, Carlos, for helping lead our TYT Army. You're awesome. To learn more about the TYT Army and how you can help from home or even start your own team, head to tyt.com/army. And P.S., check your spam folder for lost emails to stay up to date with our events.
Never in my life did I think I would like to see a dictator. But if there's going to be one, I want it to be Trump.
Tick-tock, tick-tock.
Where's the line? We've crossed every line you can imagine.
We are a socialist country. It's socialism for the rich.
Tick-tock, tick-tock.
You don't have to know the truth, just believe what they tell you.
There is no bounds to their monstrous hypocrisy. Tick-tock. I think we're going to win the Senate in 2020. And I think we're going to have the House, and I think we're going to have the presidency. Tick-tock. And in 2020, we're going to clean your clock, and we're going to run you out of town, and we're going to have an actual democracy in this country. November of 2020 could also be potentially the greatest day of our lives. Let us whisper of a dream.
With Doe, you can turn your passions into potential investment opportunities. Whether it's cannabis, fashion, travel, video games, or anything in between, you tell them what you're interested in, and they'll help you uncover the investment potential. Doe provides your daily one-stop investment shop with lists of companies that relate to your personal interests, relevant news, and your favorite stocks and videos that unpack today's money-moving headlines in under 3 minutes. Go to doe.com/TYT.
Today, a terrible day for the internet, a terrible day for America. The internet as we know it is not going to exist anymore.
A real dark day for information, and yet another way that they're bleeding out the democracy.
We're now going to have these gatekeepers of information deciding what we can and can't see, and that's what scares me the most.
Whether you're conservative or progressive or anywhere in the middle, this is the one thing we should all agree to. Protect the internet, because the establishment is coming for it. Don't let them destroy the internet.
Hey, welcome back to the Young Turks, guys. Cenk and Anna with you guys. And we've got a great show for you guys, obviously. And we're going to talk about Fauci in a second. But first, I want to read some comments for you guys. MPC, these are our members as usual. MPC writes in, why, dear God, is he still in the White House? OMG. And that's how a lot of us feel, obviously. Unfortunately, there's such a giant difference between how a Democratic president and a Republican president is treated. If Obama had said one out of the 1,000 things that Trump has said wrong, they'd be looking to impeach him immediately. Okay, Trigger Incarnate writes in, great to see Cenk in fine form and doofing it up better than ever. No problem, can do. And Jay Hufford writes in, these Republicans are all pro-life until it means a few points off the Dow. Then it's like the surplus of dead bodies is a growth opportunity for funeral homes, gravediggers, and crematoriums. They haven't said that yet, but hold, and you never know. All right, Anna, you're up.
All right. Well, I want to stay on this topic of Anthony Fauci within, this coronavirus task force, because he's kind of like a security blanket. It's comforting to know that there are some experts around Donald Trump, but unfortunately, he's got some issues with Trump, and Trump's got some issues with him. So after weeks of having to correct Donald Trump's misinformation on COVID-19 and doing a number of media appearances in order to set the record straight, it appears that Dr. Anthony Fauci, who's the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, is experiencing an increase in tensions between himself and Donald Trump. And it's because of the fact that he's been going on cable news shows, network news shows, in an effort to correct the record on some of the misinformation that Trump has put out there. And Trump doesn't take kindly to that. Without further ado, I want to go to this video because it has to do with a topic that's really being discussed right now. And there's a significant difference between Fauci's message, which you're about to hear, and what Trump believes. Take a look.
Where is Dr. Fauci right now? Why is he not at this briefing? Will he attend future ones?
I was just with him for a long time. And he's at the task force meeting right now. We have a task force meeting. He was there.
Does he agree with you about the need to reopen the economy soon?
Well, he doesn't not agree. I mean, we had a long talk, and he understands there's a tremendous cost to our country, both in terms of lives and in terms of economics, and in terms of many, many years of rebuilding something that was a fine-tuned machine. It was nobody's fault. It just happened. This horrible virus came from wherever, and it just happened. It just happened. He fully understands that. No, he's a good man. I like Dr. Fauci a lot, just so you understand. No, he's not here because we really weren't discussing what he's best at.
So that was Trump's press briefing last night. And it was kind of interesting because it was the first time that Fauci wasn't present. And that's why the reporter asked him, like, yo, what's up? Where's Dr. Anthony Fauci? We want to get some actual correct information tonight during this press briefing. But Trump said nice things about Fauci, but behind the scenes, based on reporting from several sources, including the New York Times, there are tensions. The reason why Trump hasn't gotten rid of him yet is because people trust him, people like him, and Trump is concerned that getting rid of him now would actually hurt Trump and his chances of re-election.
So let me decode, though, what Trump said there. First of all, Pence tells him, he's at a task force meeting. Wait a minute. Pence is the head of the task force, so why isn't he at the meeting? And then Dr. Birx is also in the task force. Why isn't she at the meeting? No, they decided that they were going to keep Fauci out of the meeting. They're like, this isn't what he's good at. What do you mean? Informing people about the status of the virus is exactly what he's good at. And so why? Does he have some sort of secret talent at NASCAR that we're unfamiliar with? No, that's the whole point of Dr. Fauci, is to come and tell us what the latest scientific and medical issues are in regards to this virus. But the interesting part was Trump's train of thought there is he said, no, he doesn't not agree. Like, this is the main divergence, where Trump wants everybody to go back to work as soon as possible to help the stock market, whereas Fauci says, well, that's not going to help anything anyway, because more people are going to get sick if you do that. So we need to maintain social distancing for a longer period of time. But if you notice, Trump's answer was, he agrees, no one's at fault here. This thing came from wherever it came from. No one's at fault. Right. Knows where it came from. So what he's trying to say is Fauci isn't blaming me. So he's okay enough, and don't report that Fauci's blaming me because I didn't start the disease. But nobody thinks you started the disease. That isn't the question. That isn't the issue. The issue is, how are you handling it? And for example, if you force people back to work too early, you might be handling it poorly and make the disease far worse. But he's such a simpleton that's why he's talking about, like, the disease came from somewhere else.
Well, okay, so there's one other part to that I actually want to decode, because remember, Trump has really relied on using some pretty racist language in talking about COVID-19. He keeps referring to it as like a Chinese virus. That press conference was actually the first time that he avoided referring to it as a Chinese virus, which is why in that moment it was kind of awkward, where he was like, it came from wherever it came from. And it's so funny. I thought about this last night. I'm like, it's going to hurt his vote with Asian voters who, there's a pretty significant conservative Asian voting bloc that he's needlessly antagonizing right now. And then sure enough, all of a sudden he starts, changing his rhetoric. And I think it has to do with his chances of getting reelected, really.
Yeah, no, look, credit where credit is due. It's the same thing as Trump always does. He starts a fire, then sometimes he puts some of the fire out, forcing me to give him credit for that. But yeah, he's the one that started creating this atmosphere where Asian Americans were being blamed. I told the story on the air now a couple of weeks ago about how my son came home asking about if it was basically Chinese people's fault. And then but I'm glad he's now backing away from that. And he also put out a tweet saying, hey, don't blame Asian Americans. They didn't do this, and they're an important part of our community, etc. Yes, Anna, it's a rare ethnic voting bloc that he hasn't completely pissed off and might be able to get a couple of votes from. Koreans, for example, are very religious and have a decent chance of voting Republican based on that. And there's many other factors here. But also, there are a lot of wealthy Asian Americans.
Yeah.
So could he care about that in terms of his donor class? Could he be hearing from Asian business leaders? That certainly could be the case as well.
Exactly. And I do want to mention that Dr. Anthony Fauci completely disagrees with Donald Trump's goal of opening the economy back up, meaning encouraging people to go back to work by Easter. In fact, he released a statement, Fauci did, saying that Trump needs to be very flexible with that date. So we'll see what happens. We know that if experts around him push him too far in a direction he doesn't want to go in, or in a direction that doesn't like immediately benefit him in the short term, then he gets rid of them. He likes to be surrounded by yes men. And luckily, you know, some of the health experts around him right now aren't yes men, but they're doing their best to try to like massage him while, you know, getting actual factual information out there. And by the way, go ahead, Jake.
Yeah. And Trump even said in that press conference, he said, well, if we listen to the doctors, the whole world would be shut down, and they'd shut it down for like 2 years. First of all, that's not remotely true. No doctor has said we're going to shut the world down for 2 years. But more importantly, it gives you a sense of his mindset there, where he thinks, if I listen to the damn doctors, they're going to want to be cautious. And I don't want to be cautious, because that's about saving people's lives. And I'm trying to save my presidency here and my chances at re-election. So that's why he's talking about, well, other smarter conservatives frame it as a balancing act. Well, that's a sensible way of talking about it, even if they don't mean it. But for Trump, he doesn't have that kind of nuance. So he's just like, oh, don't listen to the doctors. They shut it down for like 2 years. So in other words, I am not going to listen to the doctors.
Right. Well, I want to reset for the second half of this story because it has to do with that legendary facepalm moment during one of these press briefings. So let's talk about that a little bit. During one of Donald Trump's press briefings on coronavirus, there was a moment where Dr. Anthony Fauci appeared to respond to something Trump said with a facepalm, right? Now, if you watch TYT regularly, you're familiar with the facepalm because I do it quite often toward Cenk when we're hosting together. But in this case, Dr. Anthony Fauci did it in response to Donald Trump. Let's take a look at that moment, and then I'm going to tell you the excuse that Fauci has given the public about that moment.
You know what I'd like to do? I'd like him to go back to the State Department, or as they call it, the Deep State Department. You don't mind? I'd like to have him go back and do his job. So does anybody have any question? Please.
Okay, so, you know, instead of saying State Department, he says Deep State Department. And so, of course, people want to know, like, what's up? Not just the media, but people surrounding Trump who are Trump loyalists are like, oh, we don't like that guy. What is he trying to say? Well, officials asked him about that viral moment in the White House briefing room when he put his hand to his face and appeared to suppress a chuckle after Trump referred to the State Department as the Deep State Department. Fauci had a benign explanation. He had a scratchy throat and a lozenge or cough drop he had in his mouth had gotten stuck in his throat, which he tried to mask from reporters. Like, is anyone buying that? Is anyone buying? Like, it's okay. We all had the same reaction, Dr. Fauci. But I mean, he's got to give some sort of excuse. Otherwise, Trump will throw a temper tantrum.
Yeah. When a cough drop gets stuck in my throat, I always laugh. I think like, oh, that's so funny. It's stuck in my throat.
Oh yeah, I got cough drops all day when I'm doing the show with you. That's what the facepalm's all about, Cenk. Just that lozenge stuck on the roof of my mouth.
Yeah. So look, Fauci's been around since 1984 in the government, fighting infectious disease and being the head of that department. So before this pandemic, he was best known for getting Ronald Reagan to pay a little bit of attention to HIV/AIDS. He did some great work in moving the government in the direction of actually helping people. Reagan did far too little, far too late, but at least Dr. Fauci moved him in the right direction. So he knows how to handle sensitive politics. And so as long as he's not fabricating anything about the disease, if he's fabricating something about a lozenge, I could live with it. Because, if you upset Trump, he doesn't care how good you are at your job. The only thing he cares about, we've talked about this 1,000 times, is loyalty, because he's a mobster at heart and he values loyalty over competence. So if you piss him off, it'll be Fauci versus Grouchy. And we can't have that because we need Fauci.
We do. We need actual health experts to give us the information we need to stay safe. So I agree with you on that. All right. When we come back from the break, turns out that some of those insider trading senators are being called out by a Republican. So I'll tell you who it is. And by the way, in the process of going after them, this Republican is defending Katie Hill. Who is it?
Yeah, well, and I'll tell you too. But by the way, yes, Fauci versus Grouchy is a dad joke. So buck to tyt.com/go. And yes, I actually got it from Brett Ehrlich. Anyway, and yes, please, tyt.com/go is as important as ever. And also in the postgame today, we're going to talk about Melania Trump. Did she actually get tested? And did Trump actually know that? We got a great video for you guys. And of course, here the last half hour is a third of the show, and that's just for members. tyt.com/join to become a member. If you're watching on YouTube, it's the little join button underneath the video. All right, we'll be right back.
You're about to watch some behind-the-scenes footage of the Young Turks. Ooh. Now, these are partial videos. If you want to get all of them, you become a member. Go to tyt.com/join, and you'll get all the behind-the-scenes of me, Anna, John, JR, a little bit reality show like. tyt.com/join, and enjoy this.
You know what you're seeing behind me? Jersey. Hold. Watch me flip this camera. However I flip it. Do I flip it like this? No, I just took a picture. I'm bitzing right now.
What?
Behind the scenes.
Oh, okay. For members? I don't have my face on.
She doesn't have her face on, folks. Oh, that's JR's ass right there.
You can't take 5 minutes off, can you?
No, I can't, Johnny Pie. I said it was live stream, but I was lying. It's not a live stream. It's just for members. Bitsy, this is my cat. You know what his name is? Kiki Cat.
Animals are innocent.
Control room and the insanity is obviously there.
Right now, as you can see, I'm directing or tech directing.
I'm so happy to be here.
This is what like a Labor Day beard looks like for Cenk. Man, you're a Young Turks viewer if you recognize me like this.
Oh, thank you. You are the one person in my life I would love to meet.
What's going on, guys? This is a Bitsy or a BTS or behind the scenes with Hassan Piker, aka Woke Bay.
Oh, hi, I didn't see you there.
I have finished my show, The Damage Report, and now I get into a really awkward time of the day.
When I'm sitting, the control room is right there. So I can see Bart.
And this is the Pittsburgh office, by the way. Referred to often as the boiler room.
You see how it's ripped? Is it super unprofessional to wear that at a business meeting? Or am I like cool rebel?
I just finished doing the power panel and I'm fired up.
What do you do for TYT?
Not a whole lot.
If you're frantically tweeting at us that something's broken, thank you, because I'm fixing it.
And thank you for being a TYT member.
Super last thing, because there's always got to be a super last thing. Oh, that was disastrous. This has been behind the scenes, behind the scenes.
We're gonna do a little thing we like to call Weekly World News. Weekly World News! I cull stories from around the globe, stories that aren't covered on the main show or aren't covered enough, and I turn it into a 5-question quiz for Dave and Steve. All right, do we have our answers? A from Dave. and C from Steve. And the correct answer is B, an oil tanker that sank off the coast of China. Okay, we have one answer of B and one answer of C. What is the correct answer? It is, of course, A, an airplane wing walking stunt gone wrong. Okay, we have an answer of A from Dave and C from Steve. The correct answer is B. We have an answer of B and C. What is the correct answer in true Weekly World News tradition? It's A.
Come on.
Taking the bear out for ice cream.
That can't possibly be true. We're terrible today. Just terrible.
When news is breaking and when you need Brett Ehrlich, it's time. When news breaks, when news is breaking and you like. When news is breaking and you need Brett Ehrlich, it's time for Breaking News with Brett Ehrlich. This is Breaking News with Brett Ehrlich.
Climate is changing fundamentally, extremely, and non-linearly. It's becoming worse now. It's not when the levees burst that is the problem. It's in the anticipation of that.
So I hope every human being is safe. And by human beings, I do not include multinational corporations, especially the ones that started climate change in the first place.
What we're currently doing right now in cutting emissions is clearly not enough. There will be ramifications to what Trump is doing. I don't want people to suffer, but I feel like there's going to be a lot of suffering because we have an imbecile as our leader.
All right, back on a Young Turks. Let me go to your comments. Members first, tyt.com/join to become a member. Anna's ambassador of Fun Police writes in, if Trump sends people back to work early, then every other country will issue travel bans against America. Other countries are not stupid, and they don't want to get corona again after getting it under control. It's a very good point, and almost certainly will happen. I bathe in a very stable genius's tears, says Fauci isn't being exiled just because he corrected Trump. He's being exiled because he's taking some of the spotlight away from Trump. That's an excellent point. Trump said that he, in the past, he said he liked Fauci because he's good on TV. He's a good TV doctor. Okay, but the thing with Trump is you got to walk a fine line. You have to be good on TV, otherwise he doesn't like you. But if you're too good on TV, then you're taking the spotlight away from him.
Can I say something about Anthony Fauci? I don't know what it is about him, but it is comforting for me because I like this person a lot. But Fauci reminds me a lot of Dave Kohler.
Yeah, right?
Right? Yeah, there's like some, like the gestures and like how he speaks very matter-of-factly and he just like cuts to the chase. Like it just reminds me of Dave Kohler, and I'm like, I trust that guy. He knows what he's talking about.
It's a less grouchy Fauci.
Yes.
One last thing, right? So when Trump says, I like X, X's days are numbered. And kudos to Trump for not mentioning China this time around. So easy to get praise, just as long as you don't do the worst of the worst. YouTube super chat, Error Zero writes in, let's sacrifice grandma and grandpa to the economy, sort of like how the Aztecs used to sacrifice people to the sun. Funny you say that. When I was first watching that interview of Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, I thought of the Aztecs as well, because he kept talking about sacrifice. Look, if we've got to sacrifice some old people to the gods, to the stock market gods, it is what it is, right? That's how they think. It's unbelievable.
My boy's 70 years old. Like he's turning 70, I think, next week. So it's not like he's a whippersnapper. So Dan Patrick, go to work. Go to work. Yeah. There's a local Ralph supermarket that could use some workers right now. Right? Do it for America. Do it for your country. Just like you proposed others do.
I was at the supermarket today. I want to tell you about that experience because I got a couple of things out of it. We'll save that for the post game. for members, tyt.com/join. And thank you for using YouTube Super Chat. Let me just read two more because it's important. He said, Jank, you're looking surprisingly fresh. I think this quarantine has done your skin good. No, it's the lighting. And Jeffrey Perez says, what do you think about New York? Do they need to lock the city down? People are escaping the hot zone. Limit domestic travel. Well, that's an issue that just came up. And Dr. Birx said, if you're leaving New York City, you should self-quarantine for 14 days because you might already have the disease. Just leaving doesn't mean you're safe. Doesn't mean you don't already have it. I understand the urge to leave, and I'm sure they're not going to lock the city down. But make sure that you stay indoors for 14 days if you're leaving New York because it obviously spread like wildfire in the city. Okay, Anna.
All right. So there was a big story last week that we have an update to, and I'm glad there's an update because I want to stay on this. I don't want these people getting away with what they're doing. So last week we reported that there were several U.S. senators who might have engaged in illegal insider trading. They are not allowed to use information that they've learned through their jobs that is not available to the public in order to make decisions about their stock portfolios. But last January 24th, senators, every single one of them, had a briefing on the severity of COVID-19. Now, keep in mind that these senators didn't make public statements about the severity, but a lot of them did dump stocks because you could expect that certain businesses aren't going to perform so well if the virus is as serious as it turned out to be. Now, a Republican lawmaker, Representative Matt Gaetz from Florida, is not happy about the fact that these senators did that and actually wants some consequences for them. Now, one of the senators who was implicated in this is the Senate Intel chairman, Richard Burr. And so Matt Gaetz called him out via Twitter saying, Katie Hill gets run out of Congress for screwing a campaign staffer absent any complaint. Senator Burr stays as intelligence chairman after screwing all Americans by falsely reassuring us with op-eds on COVID while he dumped his stock portfolio early. This is not fair. So I have so many thoughts on this. First of all, I will support anyone who wants to call out these senators. I believe that these senators should be investigated. They broke the law. And it's not just Richard Burr. There's Kelly Loeffler from Georgia, Dianne Feinstein, Richard Inhofe. Like all of these people are coming up and we should be investigating them. Okay, if they dumped all these stocks right after their briefing and didn't address the seriousness of COVID-19 publicly, they need to be investigated. They need to be prosecuted. And so I'm happy that Matt Gaetz brought that up. But I do want to say this is now, I think, the second time that Gaetz has defended Katie Hill. And I think that's fascinating.
Yeah, well, I know why. So first, about Burr, I agree with Matt Gaetz, and I got no problem agreeing with him, even though he's a massive right-winger and terribly wrong on every other issue. I agreed with him on the war. I agree with him that the senators should have consequences for that kind of insider trading. But also, this is a small note. Burr is a rare Republican senator that has at times checked Donald Trump and not just gone along with everything he says. So Republicans feel like it's a slight win-win to ding Burr. Just keep that in mind. Now, why is Matt Gaetz supporting Katie Hill? Well, it's not because he's benevolent. It's because he's also famous for at least talking about and wanting to have sex with staffers. So Katie Hill did that. And so Matt Gaetz has got a dog in that fight. He is known to have created a point system when he was a legislator in the state of Florida for sleeping with people, including staffers. So I'll tell you the point system. Him and a bunch of his buddies that were legislators said that you would get 1 point for having sex with a lobbyist, 2 for a staffer, 3 for another legislator, and 6 for a married legislator.
Jeez.
Okay. Now, what they do with lobbyists and legislators is their business, and I don't really care. Okay, and I don't care if they give themselves points. I don't care what their private business is. But sleeping with staffers is completely and utterly out of bounds. And if you're wondering, well, hey, Cenk, are you being consistent on it? Yes, because Katie Hill now that we have more evidence that she also slept with a congressional staffer. I actually don't think it was close at all. She definitely should have resigned.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, of course. If any progressive had slept with a campaign staffer, any male, period, any progressive, a progressive male, no one would defend them. Not one person in America would defend them. They'd all be run out of town. So why do we have different standards for Katie Hill? So there's no, I don't shed a tear for that at all.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, look, I think that if there's any cause, if there's any reason to believe that criminal behavior exists among our lawmakers, members of the Senate, especially when, they, in a lot of cases, downplayed the seriousness and severity of COVID-19 publicly, but privately, they knew what the truth was, and they prepared themselves financially for when the market would tank. So they risked people's lives, and on top of that, broke a law regarding insider trading. And it's amazing because every once in a while I see these tweets about how, no, well, they're lawmakers, so they're immune to those types of law. No, they're not. The law applies to them. It applies to them. And they can't be doing insider trading based on non-public information that they're getting from these briefings. Now, I do want to give you some of the details, Jane, because I know you heard about it. So Kelly Loeffler from Georgia was appointed as senator because she's a meritless loser who can't win based on her actual talent or skill. So she had to, use her connections and her money to get appointed as senator, something that she's not qualified for at all. She and her husband, who is the head of the New York Stock Exchange, dumped about $3 million worth of stock following her, the Senate's briefing on January 24th. And her excuse has been, well, I mean, I knew nothing about that. We have like financial advisors who take care of our stock portfolio. I had no idea that this was going on. Who knows? Maybe she's telling the truth. Doubt it, but she should be investigated.
So when she was appointed, the main reason that reporters pointed to was that she was a very good fundraiser for Republicans. So it's always the money. And now, I didn't know at the time that her husband was the head of the New York Stock Exchange. Now, putting those two things together, it's not surprising that she knows a lot of wealthy people, and she, in essence, bought that seat for herself. Well, if you're in the business of buying things like that, well, you're going to have to save your money. So since they had information the rest of us didn't, they dumped all their stock. And she says, well, look, my husband made the trades. Yeah, but you talked to him. and it doesn't make it any better if the head of the New York Stock Exchange had information that no one else at the New York Stock Exchange had. That doesn't make the situation any better at all. And you're not going to tell, no one's going to believe, at least no real person is going to believe that it was just a wild coincidence.
All right, well, we got about 15 seconds. So I just want to encourage everyone who is a member to stick around because we will be doing a members only post game and we have some stories for you guys in addition to some personal stuff that we'll talk about. I know Cenk promised a personal story and I hope you guys enjoy it. If you're not a member, you can become one by going to tyt.com/join. Thank you and we'll see you soon.
All right, back on a post game. We got a lot of we got a couple of stories for you guys. We all of a sudden look fuzzy. I don't know why. And then I've got just a small little story about how the grocery store went today. So if you obviously a lot of you don't live in California, we're in a little bit of a lockdown here, so I want to give you that perspective.
All right, so an Arizona couple unfortunately made the mistake of taking a drug that's known as chloroquine because they heard Donald Trump talking about how it's a possible treatment for coronavirus. Now, tragically, this couple living in Arizona really did suffer the consequences of listening to someone who has no medical expertise. The man unfortunately died soon after taking the drug, and his wife was in critical condition. Reporters did speak to her to kind of get a sense of what encouraged them to take this drug. And we'll show you that video in just a minute. But before we do, I think it's important for you all to see the kind of statements that Trump made about this drug, chloroquine.
I'm probably more of a fan of that than maybe than anybody, but I'm a big fan. We'll see what happens. Look, it may work and it may not work, and I agree with the doctor what he said. May work, may not work. I feel good about it. That's all it is, just a feeling. I'm a smart guy. Let's see if it works. It might and it might not. I happen to feel good about it, but who knows? I've been right a lot.
So chloroquine came up quite a bit during his press conferences. And the problem is chloroquine worked based on some anecdotal evidence. There have been 2 studies done. They were limited in scope. And honestly, the study that people like Trump keep referring to was done out of France. They tested 26 patients. The treatment had a 4% mortality rate. And then after the people who passed away from being part of this, this trial, 3 out of the 26 went to the intensive care unit because of complications, and 1 person couldn't tolerate the medication. So it did work on a few of the people that were part of that study, but the results clearly needed to be tested more. They needed to do an expanded trial on this. So he keeps referring to this anecdotal evidence, and that is not strong evidence to encourage people to take a drug. The second issue is that what he was referring to is known as hydroxychloroquine. And so that is a tablet that's used to treat malaria, and that is also the drug that was used in this study that I was referring to earlier. But the couple took a different version of the drug known as chloroquine phosphate, which is used to kill parasites in like fish tanks. And so that's what made it even more dangerous for the couple. And unfortunately, the husband died. The wife is still alive, luckily, and NBC caught up with her to hear what she has to say. Let's just take a quick look at that video.
Did you see the president's press conference? Where did you hear about?
Yeah, we saw his press conference. It was on a lot, actually.
And then what? Did you seek out chloroquine?
I had it in the house because I used to have koi fish.
And then one more video because she talks about how she really trusted Trump and encourages people to avoid doing that.
But, they kept saying that it was approved for other things, and, Trump kept saying it was, basically pretty much a cure.
What would be your message to the American public?
Oh my God, don't take anything. Don't believe anything. Don't believe anything the president says and his people, because they don't know what they're talking about. And call your doctor. I mean, this is a heartache I'll never get over.
So there's 2 different problems here, right? So now some Republicans are saying, wow, they took the wrong chloroquine. If you drink the stuff made to clean out parasites from fish tanks, of course you're going to die. Well, there's some truth to that. Don't just go and take random stuff that appears to have the same word in it without consulting your doctors. They weren't even sick. They were doing it because they heard Trump say it. And so don't do that. So on the other hand, does that mean that what Trump did isn't wrong? No, it's very wrong. Listen to one part she said in there where he said it was already approved. And he did. He talked about, oh, the FDA sped this up. Normally they take a long time, but this one, it's, already in great shape. No, it makes it sound like it was already approved when it has not been approved. It makes it sound like it's a cure when right now there is no cure. In fact, Trump also said that it was, quote, one of the biggest game changers in the history of medicine. Okay. And that's crazy talk. Look, this chemical had potential to work when the SARS epidemic broke out, which is similar to this epidemic. But it only worked in a petri dish. And when they brought it to humans, it didn't work as well. So, right. And so any person that knows a thing about science or medicine, I mean, as little as we know, right? We know that just because it worked in a petri dish doesn't mean it works in humans, and doesn't mean it's been tested well enough with control studies, et cetera, for you to go tell the nation as the leader of the country that it's one of the greatest breakthroughs in medicine and it's going to come save the day. Is that going to mislead people? Of course it's going to mislead people. And it's going to lead to some people doing what this couple did.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And, there was a lot of outrage by people who think it's unfair to pin this on Trump. But remember, he's the president of the United States. He's the one who is telling panicked Americans that there's this promising drug that can save their lives and potentially end the pandemic. And this is the problem with having, Trump do this type of messaging. And even though he's surrounded by experts who try to correct the record, like Anthony Fauci did correct the record. He did his best, right? But what's going to happen if Trump makes those types of statements? Every major news organization is going to pick up those statements and they're going to play it over and over and over again. And who knows if anyone is actually going to see the interview that Anthony Fauci did, where he said, no, this is based on anecdotal evidence. We need to do more testing. This is dangerous. Like, who knows if people are going to see that? What they are going to see is what the president said. And so he doesn't really ever think about the gravity of what he says. He doesn't really consider how much of an influence, unfortunately, he has over people. And especially when people start feeling desperate, especially older people, who know that they have a higher death rate if they contract this virus. They hear that type of message, and yeah, if they're panicking, they'll try anything. So he doesn't take any responsibility for anything. We know that, and that's what makes this so devastating.
Yeah, and look, he's got an extra responsibility because his supporters have two more layers of stupid. And I'm being serious. So if they see him in a press conference saying it's a miracle drug, and they hear Dr. Fauci, who has a lifetime of work in this, saying, no, it's just anecdotal evidence. Well, normal smart people, non-Trump supporters, are going to believe Dr. Fauci and not Trump because he's a doctor and a scientist and spent his life on this. But Trump supporters will find that to be a laughable proposition. A scientist? Well, of course that's not going to be true. He's probably one of those people who believes in the hoax of climate change or something. They're going to believe Trump over a scientist or a doctor every single time. So since Trump knows that, he's got to be even more careful. But of course, he's less careful. And so you've got folks ready and willing to listen to him in the first place. That's a potential problem. And then second of all, you've got these guys who, if Trump says, hey, listen, this Coca-Cola is a wonder drug. What is it? Hydro Coca-Cola? Yeah, whatever. Coca-Cola. It's great. It's great. It's going to save you. They'll all immediately think it's Coca-Cola. They're not going to have a conversation about Hydro Coca-Cola. They're all going to pour Coke all over themselves. and and they listen to every word he says. So if you're a cult leader and people take your word as gospel, you should be a little bit more careful with your words.
Definitely. All right, let's move on. Let's have some fun. So okay, let me start again. Donald Trump was asked a pretty important question about COVID-19 testing, and he looked like a deer caught in the headlights. Take a look.
Both you and the Vice President have been tested for the virus. Also, Mrs. Pence. Has the First Lady been tested?
Yes.
And?
She's great. She's fine.
Negative?
Negative, yes. Okay? Negative.
Yeah,
that was amazing. That was amazing. He has no idea. No, I'm gonna say it. He has no idea if she's been tested or not.
Yeah, I watched it live, and look, we're fair and honest. So, do we know for sure that he doesn't know? Of course, we don't know for sure. But just as anyone who's lived life, that pause is, how do I answer this? Because I have no idea. Oh my God, I didn't ask if my own wife got tested. Then he did that lip purse, like, pause. And then, like any kid who's about to lie, he makes a decision and then he jumps into it. Yes, she's been tested. How is she?
Negative.
No. He didn't say negative right in the beginning, because that would be, if she really was tested and he knew it, that would be the correct response. He's like, great, totally fine. Is she negative?
No,
yeah, negative.
He would have, without even being asked, he would have volunteered that information. You get what I'm saying? Like, I just feel like he's so obsessed with making everything around him look strong and perfect that, if she had, I don't know. Look, I'm speculating clearly. So yes, we want to be clear and honest about that. But just like the way he paused, it was like an incredibly long pause, and it just did not inspire any confidence in what he was saying.
No, I'm telling you, as I was watching it live, I thought, oh my God, he doesn't know. He doesn't know if his own wife got tested. Holy cow, he's such a bad guy. And so today, panic. Stephanie Grisham came out of the White House like, no, she was tested. She's tested. She's negative. She's fine. No, tested, negative. Because afterwards, of course, they had to go panic and find out, did she actually get tested? No one knows. No one bothered to ask.
Oh my God.
And then I don't know if in case she hadn't been tested, then they got to go test her to make sure she actually is negative, because it would be horrible if she was positive. So again, guys, it's speculation. You can see it with your own eyes. In fact, I want to watch it one more time because it's so much fun. That pause, what he does with his lips, and then when he jumps into it, that's my favorite part, when he jumps into the lie.
Both you and the Vice President have been tested for the virus. Also, Mrs. Pence. Has the First Lady been tested?
Yes.
And?
She's great. She's fine.
Negative?
Negative, yes. Okay? Negative.
It's so good.
Yes.
Both you and the Vice President have been tested for the virus. Also, Mrs. Pence. Has the First
hasn't been tested is not the correct answer, because then the people will be like, why hasn't she been tested, right? I don't know. It's definitely not the correct answer. Leaving it with only one answer, which is yes.
Why does Trump do that with his lips? Like, it's so weird. It's so weird.
Yeah, look, that one I gotta let go, because sometimes when I read, I do that with my lips, which is
just totally do that. Yeah, you do this weird pout when you're reading. It's hilarious. Yeah. I'll take a picture for the members one day.
All right. I think we've proven our case.
I think so too. Yeah. By the way, just one more point I want to make about Melania. Like, in order for her to get coronavirus, she'd have to be around people. Like, I feel like she's always in a bunker somewhere. Like, you never see her.
Oh,
so,
no. I mean, no, that's a great point, and I'm really glad you brought that up, because I want to give credit to Melania Trump for being the first person to do social distancing. She's been doing social distancing for Trump for like years now, like 3 years.
She's a social distancing OG for sure.
That's right. They're like, First Lady, sorry, we have bad news for you. You're going to have to do social distancing. She's like, oh, thank God. I thought you'd never ask.
I don't want to do this stupid Be Best campaign. I don't want to be in the public. I didn't want any of this.
Right. They're like, well, you might also have to be distancing yourself from the president. Oh, the news keeps getting better and better.
All right. So tell me about your supermarket adventures.
Shenanigans. Yeah. So I went today. I went to the dentist, and then I came out of the dentist, and you know me, I always multitask. I'm on the phone, so I was like, well, you know, why don't I just go to the supermarket, pick up some stuff, and so what I didn't know is that there are now lines. You have to stand about 6 feet apart from each other and stand outside the store, and they let you in only a couple people at a time. Have you already gone through that, Anna?
I have not. I have a husband for that. So.
Okay. Well, I've been self-sequestering for like the last 10 days, as you know. So I've been out literally once before to go to the doctor on Thursday morning in the last 10 days. So it was like a zombie movie. I go outside. There's very, very few cars or anyone outside. So it's kind of a weird, haunting feeling in LA where there's normally massive traffic in the middle of the day. I go and there are people waiting outside the store with 6 feet apart. Some people wearing masks, some people not. And so there, by the way, I think that I'm sure that I was an idiot before. I mean, that's the story of my life, of being an idiot before. But during SARS and all those other things, I'm sure I chuckled at the masks and stuff. Whereas now I think when you're outside, not only the mask, but the gloves, there's actually no reason not to do gloves because it stays on some surfaces for 3 days. So this is a rough explanation, but it's not alive. It's when it's on a surface. So it could ironically stay non-alive, but active for 2 to 3 days, depending on the surface. So if you're touching places, and at a grocery store, you have to touch things. You have to touch the cereal when you're buying it. You have to touch the credit card machine, etc. And everybody touches the credit card machine. Every single person coming out that used the credit card touches that machine. And the way that it gets into your system is if you touch something, and that's why they tell you not to touch your face, then you touch your eyes, nose, or mouth, boom, it's in. And then it springs to life and then greatly multiplies. And if it goes down into your lungs, then your life is in danger. Okay, so that's why I don't think that this is a time to be a tough guy. I think everybody should be wearing those plastic gloves. I see no reason not to, other than false bravado.
So the one grocery store that I have gone to throughout, all the social distancing that's been happening in California, they have a person at the entrance of the grocery store with hand sanitizer. And so they don't let you in until you sanitize your hands, which I think is pretty cool. I'm glad that they do that. But yeah, I thought the same thing too, because, at first there was an interview I was watching with a health expert, and he was saying, well, it is an airborne virus, but if you're in a grocery store, you don't need to completely panic because they have certain filters and stuff. And so you're actually less likely to contract it that way. But then when I was at the store touching the keypad for, paying for groceries, I thought of that. I thought of what you just mentioned, how everyone here is touching the same thing. And if they didn't have that hand sanitizer in the front, then yeah, grocery stores are a great way to spread the virus. But, the most important thing to keep in mind is don't touch your face and wash your hands as soon as, you get out of that place. Use Purell or any type of hand sanitizer you have access to. We drove through a Chick-fil-A. I couldn't, like, I'm so tired of cooking. It was driving me nuts. So we drove through a Chick-fil-A and they had Purell wipes as we were driving through. They gave us each Purell wipe so we can wipe our hands as we eat our food. So people in businesses are being mindful, which is good. What I don't like is the panic buying. It's stressing me out a lot. Like, it stresses me out to go to a grocery store and see empty shelves.
Yeah. So I'm going to get to that in a second. But guys, that's why they tell you to wash your hands all the time, because if you touched the keypad that 100 other people touched, and then that got the virus on your hands, you're not necessarily going to get it if you wash your hands right away before touching your face. But if you touch something that has a surface that has it, then touch your nose, that's it. So, by the way, world's worst time to pick your nose. Just keeping it real, okay? Just letting you know, okay?
It's an important note for yourself, Cenk.
Right, public service announcement. Anyway, by the way, don't think I didn't notice that you broke a double ban there. You're not staying home, and you're getting food from Chick-fil-A, which was previously banned.
No, you can go through, I was in the car, you can go through a drive-through. And by the way, this is really important. I don't think everyone realizes this. You can go outside to like take a brisk walk or go for a run. Like, if I couldn't go outside, I'd lose my mind. I went for a run this morning. Like, I have to, but stay away from people.
After I just told you guys all that, I just touched my eye. You saw it with your own.
Yeah, I did. You're hilarious.
Right. Anyway, but I'm going to go for a run too. It's okay. You're just not supposed to congregate. So don't congregate, but you're allowed to take walks, etc. So, and I'm kidding about Chick-fil-A because the ban's lifted. I think they're now no longer indecent to LGBTQ people. They stopped. Yeah. And then the right wing got angry and they burned their Nike by mistake. And then they took the Chick-fil-A and smashed it on their face. And then they broke their Keurig machine on top of their own heads. And, all the stuff that they normally do.
It's
anyway.
The pickle. It's the pickle in those sandwiches. Like, who can say no? I love pickles. And they have the right pickle selection for those sandwiches.
Pickles, that's so funny you say that. Number one, pickles are one of the most underrated food items.
Yes! Yes! Finally, you say something that makes sense, Cenk.
Here we are in the middle of an old school episode. Okay, now you want to know why I went to the grocery store? To get pickles.
Really?
Yeah, because my sandwiches, we were making nonstop sandwiches at home, and I ran out of pickles. So I needed to get sliced pickles, and I ran out of cream for my coffee. So I get there, though, and ta-da! The golden item is there. Toilet
paper?
Yes. So finally, now if I get COVID-19, I'll at least have toilet paper to cure it. That's what cures it, right? That's why everybody's getting it.
I don't understand like the toilet paper panic. But the one other thing that you can't find anywhere are the Clorox wipes or Lysol wipes, those disinfectant wipes, which I really like because I'm crazy about keeping my place as clean as possible at all times. So I always have one in every room. Like, I have a little container of like the wipes. And I started running low and I'm like, I'll find them. They're going to be available somewhere. But no luck at all. It's amazing.
See, I didn't panic at all. Like, for 1 second, my wife had a slight panic. So I went to the grocery store like right in the beginning and bought like 4 different types of loaves of bread. And she's like, bread is going to go bad the quickest. Like, I don't know. I thought people were buying bread. I got so excited there was a grocery store with bread. I went nuts. But outside, and I keep wearing my mask the wrong way. And every time Wendy sees me, she's like, I'm like, what percentage of people think? Right. She's like, I asked her this morning, what percentage of people do you think know it's green on the outside or white on the outside? She's like, 100%. You're the only one who doesn't know.
She's probably right.
Anyway, my theory was they'll make more. They'll make more toilet paper at some point, and this place wasn't packed with toilet paper, but there was some toilet paper there, and they were only letting people buy 1 roll no matter what. I did the thing about I got to give it to my parents, which is true. They're like, nope. They're like, you're going to have to come back to buy it for your parents, but one at a time. So it's a 1 packet of like 4 or 8 or something. But I was right. I knew they'd make more toilet paper, and they have.
Yeah, look, I want to see where we're all going to end up financially after this is all over. But if we're in a decent place, no, I'm convinced I'm getting a bidet. We're getting a bidet, the kind that has the built-in butt dryer. So you can, yeah, the Europeans get it. The Europeans get it. They get it. They get all of it.
They get all of it. Yeah, no, I'm not a big fan of the bidet. Never, but I'll save that for an episode of Old School. All right, last thing at the grocery store. I nearly said this, and then I walked out and I thought, why didn't I say it? It's such a jank thing to say. But I was asking a clerk where I could find cans of tuna, and I nearly said to him, thank you for your service.
Yeah, no, by the way, definitely, you should say that. Because they are risking themselves, their health, to be out there working, and we need those grocery stores to be open. I was listening to an interview on NPR this morning, and there was a grocery store worker who said, he sounded super young. He's like, I always felt like I didn't matter, that I felt unfulfilled. And it's just interesting to find myself in this position where I realize how important this job really is. And I'm glad that he feels appreciated. I've seen some stories of grocery store workers being mistreated at Whole Foods and stuff like that, anecdotal stuff. But overall, I feel like people are showing how grateful they are, and we need more of that.
Yeah. Can't wait for Old School, especially now that I watched a season of Curb Your Enthusiasm. Mm-hmm. And I think I told you guys this yesterday. Ben's brother Josh Mankiewicz is in the last episode. So he decided to open a spine store. Anyway, I made Josh sound like Bane there.
You did.
So you think the spine store is your ally? Anyway, I can't wait for Old School. We're trying to put it back together as we speak now, guys. So I'm not saying tyt.com/go. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Okay.
It's such a Larry David thing to thank the clerks for their service, and then have a veteran overhear it and get mad, and have half the episode be about, why can't I thank them for their service? They're giving a service at an important time.
Yeah, but Larry David asks questions or does things that are actually pretty offensive, without thinking about it,
Yeah, no, I actually watched that season. Last thing, mm-hmm. I watched the season and I thought, is he allowed to say and do some of this stuff? Because if I did 1% of anything into those episodes, people would be like, you monster. So it's like we're living in this weird world where some people get to play by different rules. And I'm not saying it's I love that he gets to do it. I think we should all live in that world, right? And other people are like, no, you once joked back in 1987. You're excommunicated for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I know. I'm not down with that. We're all assholes. We're humans. We're all dicks. Let's just keep it real. We all make mistakes. We all do and say things that we later regret. So what? We're going to be held accountable for that for the rest of our lives? I think that's crazy.
I'll tell you, the thing that burns me up the most is that people, to be honest, is people pretending, especially the reporters, pretending that my jokes were serious when they were most obviously jokes. And so that's why that got into, when I was running, got into my head, and I could literally, I didn't make a single joke over a text, because I'm like, what if somebody takes the text? Not on air, not in crowds. You're like, really? We're not allowed to make jokes? That's insane. That's
yeah.
Insane.
It was noticeable. You kind of weren't fun to do the show with while you were running. You were so serious all the time, and I'm like, who is this guy?
Yeah, and partly because I was stressed too, right? But none of that shit anymore. Okay. So
yeah.
If you can't take a joke, that's your fucking problem. And as Anna said, we're all assholes and we all need bidets, and that's life.
Yep.
Okay. And I wore this in honor of Trump today, my very stable genius shirt.
Looks great. At least you're not. Oh, you are wearing a blazer over it. Okay, never mind.
Get used to it.
You're canceled. You're canceled not for the jokes, but for that terrible fashion choice.
All right. Sounds good. All right, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.
See you soon.